My name is Madison Brooks. I'm 36 years old. And when I opened my mailbox last Tuesday and saw the legal summons with my parents' names on it, my hands started shaking so hard I dropped my coffee. They were suing me. Not for money I owed them. Not for property. They were suing me for grandparent visitation rights to a daughter they told me to abort 22 years ago. The daughter they said would ruin my life. The daughter they kicked me out for carrying when I was 14 years old with nowhere to go. I stood on my front porch, the same porch I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, staring at words like petitioners and legal guardianship claim and best interest of the child, and something inside me didn't break. It sharpened. Because the people suing me for the right to see my daughter were the same people who told me I was a disgrace to the family. The same people who wouldn't let me take a single photograph when they drove me to a group home and watched me walk inside with one garbage bag of clothes. The same people who blocked my number, told relatives I ran away, and made sure I understood that the second I chose to keep that baby, I was no longer their child. They wanted rights? Fine. I had 22 years of receipts that would show a judge exactly what kind of grandparents they really were. Stay with me until the end, and you'll see how I made sure they regretted ever finding me again. To understand why that lawsuit felt like a slap and a gift at the same time, you need to know what happened the day I told them I was pregnant. I was 14, a freshman in high school, scared out of my mind. I'd missed 2 periods and stolen a pregnancy test from CVS because I didn't have money and couldn't risk anyone seeing me by one. When those 2 pink lines appeared in the school bathroom, I threw up. Not from morning sickness. From pure terror. The father was a sophomore named Tyler. We'd been dating for 3 months. When I told him, he went pale, stammered something about needing to think, and then transferred to another lunch period. I never spoke to him again. So I was alone. And I knew I had to tell my parents. My mom was in the kitchen when I got home that day, chopping vegetables with that mechanical precision she had, everything perfectly uniform. My dad was in his office on a work call. I waited until dinner. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my fork. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice cracking. "I need to tell you something." My dad set down his water glass. My mom stopped chewing. The silence stretched until it hurt. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, nobody moved. Then my dad's face turned red, the kind of red that meant an explosion was coming. My mom just stared at me like I'd announced I was dying. "How far along?" my dad asked, his voice deadly quiet. "About 8 weeks, I think." "Who is he?" my mom demanded. "A boy from school. Tyler. He doesn't want anything to do with it." My dad stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Of course he doesn't. Because he's a child. Just like you." He pointed at me, his fingers shaking. "You stupid, stupid girl. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry." My mom laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Madison. Sorry doesn't undo the fact that you've ruined your entire future. We'll take care of it," my dad said, pulling out his phone. "I'll call Dr. Morrison tomorrow. We'll schedule an appointment. You'll handle this quietly, and we never speak of it again." I felt something twist in my stomach. "What do you mean, handle it?" "You know what I mean," he said coldly. "You're not keeping it. You're 14 years old. You're not throwing your life away because you couldn't keep your legs closed." The words hit me like a punch. I looked at my mom, hoping for something, anything. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I don't want an abortion," I said, my voice barely audible. "You don't get a choice," my dad snapped. "You're a minor. We decide. And we've decided you're not ruining this family's reputation with some teenage pregnancy scandal." "It's not a scandal," I said, finding some small piece of courage. "It's a baby." "My baby?" My mom finally looked at me, and the disgust in her eyes made me want to disappear. "If you keep that thing," she said slowly, "you are not my daughter. Do you understand me? You will not live in this house. You will not use our money. You will not be part of this family." "You don't mean that," I whispered. "Try me," she replied. I spent that night crying in my room, Googling what happens to pregnant teenagers, reading about foster care and adoption and group homes. I looked at the ultrasound photo I'd gotten from the free clinic, a tiny blob that didn't even look like a person yet. And I thought about my options. I could do what they wanted. Get the abortion. Pretend none of this happened. Go back to being their perfect daughter with straight A's and piano lessons and debate team medals. Or I could choose something else. Something that terrified me but also felt like the only honest decision I'd ever made. The next morning at breakfast, I looked at both of them and said, "I'm keeping the baby." My dad's fork clattered onto his plate. "Then pack your things." "Gary," my mom started. "No," he cut her off. "She made her choice. Now she lives with it. I want her out by tonight." And just like that, at 14 years old and 8 weeks pregnant, I became homeless. My dad drove me to the group home in complete silence. My mom didn't even come to the car. She stayed inside with the curtains drawn while I loaded a garbage bag with clothes, my phone charger, and a stuffed bear I'd had since I was 6. I reached for a photo album on my dresser, pictures of family vacations and birthdays, but my dad snatched it from my hands. "Those aren't your memories anymore," he said. "You're not part of this family." At the group home, a tired-looking woman named Sandra checked me in. My dad handed her some paperwork, said something about temporary state custody until she figures out her situation, and left without looking back. I watched his car pull away and realized I was truly alone. The group home was loud, chaotic, and smelled like industrial cleaner and sadness. I shared a room with 3 other girls. One was 16 and addicted to meth. Another was 15 and had been removed from her home after reporting abuse. The third was 17 and pregnant like me, but further along, her belly already showing. Her name was Jessica, and she was the first person who didn't look at me like I'd ruined everything. "First time?" she asked, noticing me crying into my pillow that first night. I nodded. "It gets easier," she lied. "Or you get tougher." Same difference. The next months were a blur of social workers, prenatal appointments on the bus, morning sickness in communal bathrooms, and schoolwork I tried to keep up with even though I'd been transferred to a continuation school for at-risk teens. I kept texting my parents, apologizing, begging, sending ultrasound photos. Every message went unanswered. Every call went to voicemail. On my 15th birthday, I sent a text, "I miss you. Please. I'm still your daughter." My mom finally responded, "No, you're not." That was the last time I reached out. When my daughter Emma was born on a freezing February night, I was alone in the hospital except for Sandra, who'd agreed to be there as my support person. Emma came out screaming, pink and furious and perfect. When they placed her on my chest, something inside me clicked into place. This was my family now. This tiny, helpless person who needed me. I named her Emma Rose Brooks. Brooks was my mom's maiden name. A stupid, hopeful part of me thought maybe if they knew I'd honored them, they'd come around. They didn't. I aged out of the group home at 18 with a high school diploma I'd fought for, a 3-year-old daughter, and dollar sketch in savings from under-the-table babysitting jobs. We moved into a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood. I worked overnight stocking shelves at Walmart while Emma slept in a playpen next to my manager's office. During the day, I took online community college classes while Emma watched educational videos on a tablet I'd bought from a pawn shop. It was brutal. There were nights I cried from exhaustion. Mornings I fed Emma cereal for breakfast and skipped eating myself because we didn't have enough. Months where I had to choose between electricity and diapers. But we survived. And then we did more than survive. I transferred to a 4-year university with a full scholarship. Graduated with a degree in software engineering. Got an entry-level job at a tech company. Worked my way up. By the time Emma was 10, we'd moved into a real house with a yard. By the time she was 16, I was a senior developer making 6 figures. By the time she was 22 and graduating from UCLA with honors, I'd started my own consulting firm. And in all those years, my parents never called. Never sent a birthday card. Never asked if their granddaughter existed. I'd tried looking them up on social media once or twice, but they'd blocked me everywhere. Fine. I built a life without them. Then last month, Emma came home from her new job and said something that made my blood run cold. "Mom, the weirdest thing happened today." This older couple came into the office asking questions about me. They said they were my grandparents. I froze. What did you tell them? Nothing at first. I didn't know what they were talking about. But then the woman showed me a picture of you from when you were young, and I got confused. So I told them I'd have to talk to you first. Emma, I said carefully. Those people are not your grandparents. Not in any way that matters. But they said, I know what they said. But they gave up that right 22 years ago when they threw me out for being pregnant with you. Emma's face went pale. They, what? I told her a sanitized version of my past. That my parents and I didn't get along. That we'd lost touch. I'd never told her the full truth because I didn't want her carrying that rejection. But now, sitting at our kitchen table, I told her everything. The ultimatum. The group home. The years of silence. By the time I finished, Emma was crying. How dare they, she whispered. How dare they show up now and act like they care? I don't know what they want, I admitted. But we don't have to engage. We can ignore them. Except they didn't let us ignore them. 2 weeks later, the lawsuit arrived. They were suing for grandparent visitation rights, claiming Emma had been alienated from them due to my parental interference. They cited a California law that allows grandparents to petition for visitation under certain circumstances. I stared at the legal document, rage building in my chest. They wanted court-ordered access to Emma. They wanted to play grandparents now that all the hard work was done. Now that she was a successful college graduate with her whole life ahead of her. Now that there was no screaming baby, no diapers, no sleepless nights, no sacrifice required. I called a lawyer that same day. Her name was Patricia Vega, and when I explained the situation, she was quiet for a long moment. Do you have any documentation of their abandonment? She asked. I have text messages from when I was 15, begging them to talk to me. I have records from the group home. I have my intake paperwork showing they surrendered custody to the state. Get me everything, Patricia said. Every text, every email, every document. If they want to take this to court, we're going to make sure the judge sees exactly who they are. That night, I did something I'd avoided for 22 years. I went into my storage unit and pulled out a box I'd packed and never opened. Inside was my old phone, letters I'd written but never sent, journal entries from the group home, Emma's birth certificate with the line for father left blank, and the emergency contact section empty because I had no one. I charged the old phone. When it powered on, I scrolled through messages I'd sent at 15, at 16, at 17. Desperate pleas. Apologies for existing. Photos of Emma's first smile, her first steps, her first day of kindergarten. All sent into a void. All met with silence or blocked numbers. I screenshot every single one. Then I called Patricia back. I have something better than documentation, I said. I have a timeline that shows 22 years of deliberate abandonment. And I'm going to make sure the court sees every single day they chose not to be in her life. If you were me, would you let them walk back into your life after 2 decades of silence? Or would you fight back with every weapon you'd built from surviving without them? The first court date arrived faster than I expected. I walked into the courthouse in a tailored suit I'd bought specifically for this, my hair pulled back, my evidence folder thick with 22 years of proof. Patricia met me outside the courtroom, her expression confident. Remember, she said, they're going to paint themselves as victims. As loving grandparents who were kept away by a vindictive daughter. Our job is to show the truth. My parents were already inside, sitting at the petitioner's table with their lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. My dad had gone gray. My mom looked older, more fragile than I remembered. For a split second, seeing them made me feel 14 again, small and scared and desperate for their approval. Then my mom's eyes met mine, and there was no warmth, no remorse, just cold calculation. And that 14-year-old girl inside me disappeared. I was 36 now. I was Emma's mother. And I was done being afraid of them. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman named Judge Martinez, called the court to order. My parents' lawyer stood first, presenting their case with practiced sympathy. Your Honor, my clients have been cruelly denied access to their only grandchild for over 2 decades. Despite numerous attempts to reconcile with their daughter, Madison Brooks has systematically alienated them from their granddaughter, Emma. They're here today seeking what any loving grandparents deserve, the right to know their grandchild. Numerous attempts. I almost laughed. Patricia stood, calm and precise. Your Honor, the petitioner's characterization of events is not just misleading, it's demonstrably false. We have extensive documentation proving that my client's parents voluntarily abandoned her when she was 14 years old and pregnant, relinquishing their parental rights and making no contact for 22 years. They have no grounds for grandparent visitation. Judge Martinez looked at my parents. Is it true that you had no contact with your daughter or granddaughter for 22 years? My dad's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, the circumstances of their estrangement are complex. My clients were young parents themselves, overwhelmed by their teenage daughter's pregnancy. They made difficult decisions they now regret deeply. But that shouldn't prevent them from forming a relationship with their adult granddaughter now. I'd like to hear from the petitioners directly, Judge Martinez said. Mr. Brooks, why did you have no contact with your daughter for over 2 decades? My dad stood, and I saw him deploy the same authoritative tone he'd used when he told me to pack my things. Your Honor, my daughter made a choice at 14 that we couldn't support. We believed she needed to understand the consequences of her actions. We thought she'd come around, make the responsible choice, and then we could move forward as a family. When she chose to keep the baby against our advice, she cut us off. I cut them off? The lie was so blatant I gripped the edge of the table. Patricia immediately stood. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence text messages from Ms. Brooks to her parents, sent when she was 15, 16, and 17 years old. I pulled up the first screenshot on the courtroom display. There was my 15-year-old self's message, time-stamped and desperate. Mom, please. It's my birthday. I miss you so much. Emma is healthy. She's beautiful. I'm trying so hard. Please just talk to me. Below it, my mom's response, no, you're not. The courtroom went quiet. Judge Martinez leaned forward, reading the screen. Ms. Brooks, is this your response to your daughter on her 15th birthday? My mom shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, that was taken out of context. She was being manipulative. Manipulative? Patricia cut in. Let's see more context then. She pulled up message after message. Me sending ultrasound photos. Me sharing Emma's first words. Me begging for help when I couldn't afford groceries. All met with silence or blocked numbers. Then Patricia introduced the group home records. These documents show that Mr. and Mrs. Brooks voluntarily surrendered guardianship of their 14-year-old pregnant daughter to the state of California. They signed paperwork removing themselves as her emergency contacts. They made 0 visits during her 18-month stay in state care. My dad's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Martinez held up her hand. I want to hear more. Ms. Brooks, the younger Madison, I'd like you to tell me, in your own words, what happened when you were 14. I stood on shaky legs and told the truth. All of it. The ultimatum. The garbage bag. The drive to the group home. The years of silence. When I finished, there were tears streaming down my face, but my voice never wavered. I tried for years to have them in my life, I said. I sent pictures. I sent updates. I apologized for existing. And they never responded. Not once. Not when Emma said her first word. Not when she started kindergarten. Not when she graduated high school with honors. Not when she got into UCLA. They had 22 years to be grandparents. They chose not to be. And now they want access because she's successful and grown, and they don't have to do any of the hard work. Judge Martinez looked at my parents. Do you have any evidence of attempts to contact your daughter or granddaughter in the past 22 years? Their lawyer shuffled papers. Your Honor, my clients were respecting their daughter's boundaries. I set no boundaries, I interrupted. I begged them to break their silence. Patricia entered the final piece of evidence, a notarized letter from Sandra, the group home director, describing my parents' complete absence during my time in state care. Not one visit. Not one phone call. Not one inquiry about her well-being. The judge sat back, her expression hard. I've seen enough. This is one of the clearest cases of parental abandonment I've encountered. The petitioners voluntarily removed themselves from their daughter's life when she was a minor and most vulnerable. They made no effort to contact her or their granddaughter for over 2 decades. They have no legal standing to demand visitation rights now. My dad stood, his face red. Your Honor, we're her parents. You were her parents, Judge Martinez corrected coldly. Until you chose not to be. Petition denied. This court will not reward 22 years of abandonment with access to the family you discarded. The gavel came down, and I felt something release in my chest. It was over. But as we walked out of the courtroom, my mom grabbed my arm. Madison, please. Can't we just talk? I looked at her hand on my sleeve, then at her face. She was crying now, the tears real. For a moment, I wanted to feel sorry for her. Why now? I asked. Why after 22 years? She glanced back at my dad, who was standing by the courtroom doors, defeated. We heard you were successful. That Emma graduated from UCLA. We saw her LinkedIn profile. And we realized what we'd missed. There it was. The truth. They didn't come back because they loved us. They came back because we'd succeeded without them, and they wanted to claim some credit. You missed everything because you chose to, I said, pulling my arm away. You don't get to show up now and play happy family. Emma and I built our lives from nothing. We're not your redemption story. We're sorry, my mom whispered. We were wrong. We were scared and stupid and wrong. I took a breath. Maybe you were. But sorry doesn't give you back 22 years. Sorry doesn't erase what you did to a 14-year-old girl who needed her parents. Sorry doesn't make you grandparents. I walked away, Patricia beside me, leaving them standing in the courthouse hallway with their expensive lawyer and their useless lawsuit. That night, Emma and I ordered pizza and sat on the couch in our living room, the same living room I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, the same house I'd built from nothing. How do you feel? She asked. Lighter, I admitted. For 22 years, a part of me wondered if I'd been wrong. If maybe I should have tried harder. But seeing them today, hearing them lie to a judge about trying to contact us, I realized I never had a chance. They made their choice the day they told me to get an abortion or get out. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad they're not in our lives. We're better without people who love conditionally. She was right. We were better. We'd always been better. 3 weeks later, I got one final text from my mom's number. We're moving to Arizona. We won't bother you anymore. For what it's worth, we're proud of what you became, even if we had nothing to do with it. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed a single response. You're right. You had nothing to do with it. That's exactly the point. I blocked the number and deleted it from my phone. Here's what I learned. Family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who shows up. Who stays. Who fights for you when you're at your lowest. My parents threw me away at 14 and then had the audacity to demand access to the life I built from their rejection. The court saw through them. And more importantly, I finally saw through them too. If your family ever made you choose between their approval and your own survival, I hope you choose yourself. I hope you build something so beautiful from the ashes that when they come crawling back, you're strong enough to close the door. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just living well while they watch from the outside, realizing they threw away something irreplaceable. And if you're still watching, here's my question for you. If the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally gave you an ultimatum instead, would you spend your life trying to win them back? Or would you do what I did and build a family that actually deserves you? That's it from Revenge Time. If this story made you feel something, anger, validation, or maybe even hope, drop a comment below. Tell me, would you have let them back in or slam the door like I did? And if you're here because you needed to hear that you're not wrong for setting boundaries with family, hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories of people who stopped letting their blood relatives bleed them dry. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens when the people who underestimated us realize they made the biggest mistake of their lives. See you in the next one.